Welcome to Prime Time, a show for adults in the prime of life. I'm Susan Hoskins, the director of the Princeton Senior Resource Center. We're a nonprofit organization providing programs and services to older adults, their families, and caregivers. I'm happy today to talk about fall prevention, and my guests are Dr. Robert Plotzman, who is the subacute medical director at Princeton Care Center, Dr. Guillermetti, who is the rehabilitation consultant.
Correct.
And Harsha Amin, who is the rehab therapy services director at Princeton Care Center. So I thought we'd start out, Robert, since you're here with us today, just to talk for a minute about what geriatric medicine is, because many people have a GP or an internist and haven't thought about having a geriatric specialist as they get older.
So what a geriatrician is basically a physician that specializes in care for the elderly, to sum it up. Dealing with issues that go beyond the diabetes, the cholesterol, but dealing with osteoporosis, falls, dealing with issues at home, dealing with care with the interaction between families, children, as the patient themselves get older. And the geriatrician is there as in the outside community to try to keep them at home and to make sure they don't end up in the hospital. Still doing preventative care, but it goes one step beyond, making sure that they're safe.
Okay. And fall prevention is a big piece of helping people stay at home, isn't it?
Correct.
You know, in the aging field, we're seeing a lot on fall prevention as one of the key factors and the evidence-based practices that we need to bring back to our communities and do to help people stay at home. So how about if you talk a little bit about what you do or what the key parts of fall prevention are? What are we talking about when we say fall prevention?
Fall prevention, are you looking into risks or are you talking about how to prevent the fall? Is that what you want to know?
Well, take it either way. I mean, you know, what are the risks? Why do we worry about fall prevention?
Okay, falls can occur anywhere, any place, to anybody and at any time. But however, there are some risk factors which you look into it. Somebody who has decreased balance, unsteady gait can cause a fall. Acute illness, if somebody is using multi-pharmacy, example, 4 or more medication, they act differently, and that can cause loss of balance. Alcohol consumption, 2 or more alcohols in elderly population can cause loss of balance. Also, let's see, people who have problems with vision, vestibular problems, also proprioception, they are going to have problems with falling often. Also, patients who are confused and patients with dementia, they at times, let's say if they are using a wheelchair, if they are in a facility, they forget to lock the brakes because of confusion, or they hold on to a piece of furniture in the house which is not steady, and that can cause a fall. And fear of falling is one of the most proven risk of fall, which leads to isolation and lack of activity.
What are some of the, Dr. Guillermetti, what are some of the things that you see as risk factors, things that contribute to falling besides the medical conditions?
Well, in addition to what she mentioned, we see the inactivity. When a patient becomes quite inactive, they lose strength, they lose muscle, and they, of course, become a higher risk for a fall. Patients who are confused and do not have enough lighting at night when they try to get out of bed. Pieces of scattered rugs around the house. As mentioned, the proprioception, which is the way they feel the floor or do not feel the floor because they have had diabetes, their nerves don't work very well. Therefore, they don't feel the floor and they can really lose their balance and fall.
The other thing that I've been aware of is that we don't have the balancing reflex as much to bring it back. So once an older person starts to fall, they often can't
Absolutely.
catch their balance, take that quick step, or
And also with-
Because as they get older, there are changes in their gait pattern. And the gait pattern consists of two phases. It's a swing phase and a stance phase. So when you get older, changes occur in both the phases of the gait. And that way, patient starts walking slower, decreased step length, decreased base of support. If they have like a lot of limitation in the joint, that is also going to affect the gait. And they walk like slower, stiffer gait.
Dr. Plassman, you
Yeah.
were going to.
Now, in my office, I see certain disease orders that, as you get older. So one common thing is osteoporosis. When you lose, your center of gravity changes as if a female with osteoporosis, they're a little hunched over, and their center of gravity. So they lose their balance is off, their gravity, they lose their balance a lot quicker, and they can't catch themselves. And
Don't you find, too, that some people's perception of that balance point is different? I mean, my mother-in-law walks in a way that I'm sure I would fall over
Right.
backwards,
Absolutely.
but where the top part of her body is
And-
thrown
and
way
the other
back, and her
thing is-
hips are thrown right
And even
forward.
simple arthritis, when they favor one joint more than the other, it's weaker. They lose their muscle strength, and that one leg might be stronger than the other one, so they lose the balance, they can't catch it. And so off balance, the same thing as a wobbly table, and other disease orders like Parkinson's and and dementia, as you said, is very common in a sense because they're not perceiving well in the sense about their safety awareness.
Absolutely.
So I know that at Princeton Care Center and other rehabilitation facilities that are an inpatient, you often see people when they're coming out of a hospital, they're
Right.
coming out of some kind of serious situation that causes them to need the rehab to regain their ability, the ability that they had before that. Before we talk about that, can we talk some about what kinds of things people can do
To
to
prevent
prevent
falls.
that while they're still home, and what are some of the things that
One thing you need to remember, you cannot prevent falls 100%. However, you can work on increasing balance strategies. Like example, you gave it about your mother-in-law, like a poor posture, improve the posture. Then best way at home is to improve the environment. Look into it that the lighting is bright, then the bathrooms are well lit. They also have to make sure if it's a cluttered room, the clutters are removed, like loose rugs, pads, furniture on the floor.
Just to say about the bathrooms, most of the fall, you got to consider their tiles. It's wet.
Absolutely.
So shower rails, bathroom rails for the toilet. So something strong enough for when they get up, they can hold on.
Non-skid
not the
mats.
towel rack.
Not the towel
Not
rack.
the towel
rack. Not the, exactly.
Non-skid mats on the floor that
Exactly.
can help. Even alarm systems, body systems can help, and also like a structured
those throw
routine.
rugs, though, are a real big one. I mean, I think a lot of what I see as I visit people's homes is that a lot of people really care about what their house looks like. So you want to have a rug right inside the front door. You want to have a rug by the stairs, the heavy traffic areas, the heavy dirt areas. You get this little throw rug and you put it down, but
People don't realize that small little rise in a rug can throw them off because they can't lift up their leg to
Absolutely.
overcome it.
we don't realize how
Exactly.
shallow
Right.
our
Exactly.
step is, how
Right.
close to the floor we.
The other thing also at home, you need to look into it that they are wearing proper footwear. If they have
That's a good
Right.
one.
pain, if there is appropriate orthotic device provided, like non-skid socks can lead to a fall. Also, they need to make sure that the shoes are proper, the pants are proper, like proper height, otherwise they can trip over their own clothing.
So Dr. Giacometti, what about that? I mean, some people feel that they're safer barefoot.
In
And
some
I know-
instances, they are,
Okay.
but in most instances, they are not. And the problem is that when patients do not wear the correct footwear, their foot slides from the slipper, or the slipper has a too soft a surface. We have to make sure that they have good crepe soles, that they have good grip, that they fit properly as well.
and that if they need an orthosis, which is a little brace or something, to make sure that the family or the patient knows how to put it on and take it off correctly. Because an ill-fitting prosthetic, or orthosis, can really throw the patient completely off. Not balance. The patient might have completely perfect balance, but the footwear is not fitting, therefore it's not providing the support the patient needs or the person needs. I would like also to mention that the majority of the falls actually happen in the home. So the home is the most important place to be safe. In the home, we also sometimes have lamps, and the cords are in the middle.
Right.
Fans in the summer. If you are going to use a fan, make sure that the cord is behind pieces of furniture. That the ladies, if they can avoid to wear long robes, please do so. Most people do trip over their own clothing. At night, in bed, do not use a lot of bedding. The simpler, the better, because some people have fallen because they get tangled. in the
Avoid
bed.
sheets. Avoid use
Exactly.
of sheets.
And so in the bathroom, if they can stand, they could stand grabbing onto the rail, but most people should be using a stool in the shower because it's soapy water, it's slippery. And even in the best of conditions, young people have fallen.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're talking about with the bedding is so critical too, because a lot of people do get up during the night. You're a
Absolutely.
little groggy, you're
Yep.
a little
Right.
tired.
Right.
Some people I know some of my folks that have fallen, it's because they're just a little bit disoriented, but also
They
a
have
little lightheaded.
they
You know,
have
getting up from the
statistics.
horizontal, and people sort of, oh my gosh, I got to go,
Sure.
and they
They
sort of
jump
hurl
up.
themselves out of bed and just keep going.
Stats usually states that 28 to 45% of the falls occur in home and community due to rushing to the bathroom at nighttime, tripping over the environmental factors,
Yes.
or orthostatic hypertension.
Yeah.
So those are the
So we've talked
biggies.
about the bathroom. We've talked about the throw rugs. We've talked about getting out of bed. Other home hazards.
The stairs.
The stairs.
The stairs. Pets.
Pets are.
Pets
Pets.
are a big hazard, and we all have pets. We love our pets as our family. However, we must be very careful as we age, especially with cats that like to run in
sneaky.
between your
They
legs.
are.
And it's
Right.
it's very real. Most elderly people live alone. They like the company of a pet, but they must be aware that they are a high risk for falls.
We talked about that last month when we talked about pets, that it's wonderful to have the company, but
Correct.
it also does create some
Switch to a
risks,
fish.
so.
No.
And
Now-
And if you're walking an energetic dog, sees a
Definitely.
squirrel,
Right.
there's another fall risk outdoors.
Going-
You talked about stairs. I want to go back.
Going
talk
back
about
to the stairs, I was
Yeah.
just going to say, if you'd feel uncomfortable going up and down or down, you could use a technique that we teach at the Princeton Care Center and other rehab facilities, which is to go up with both hands on the rail, could be on the same side, one step at a time. You can also use both rails. If you don't have a rail on the contralateral side, please have your family place a rail up there. No rugs at the top or the bottom of the stairs. And please avoid doing many trips up and down. And that is sometimes helpful.
structure
Well, I
the
think
routine.
The
The
railing's
routine.
Structure the
important because
routine.
we do see stairways that have loose railings or no
Definitely.
railings.
Poor
You know,
lighting.
sometimes poor lighting. Sometimes the stairways are very narrow, so people have been going up like this, but it
Using
doesn't give
the
you
wall.
anything to grab onto.
Or
if
the
you
old
slip.
homes where the laundry is downstairs.
Downstairs,
you know,
yeah.
The washer dryer is downstairs in the
Yeah.
basement,
And
which
you're
is
carrying
dark,
a laundry
which is
basket.
dark, which is full of everything.
And they come down with a basket in their hands.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
And fall definitely decreases the functionality of activities of daily living.
like
So let's
at
talk
home.
now, if we've kind of covered the things that happen inside the home, let's talk about things in sort of in the home vicinity. Things like dragging the trash can out to the street or
Uneven pavements.
Uneven pavements.
You know. Other things besides, I mean, the main thing is try to avoid doing things which are going to, you know, prevent you or cause you to fall. So like you said, dragging garbage, anything that's going to throw your center of gravity off. But we talked about the little rise in a step might, or a little rise in a carpet might cause you to fall. So an uneven pavement, a hill, you know, people tend to, you know, something's blocking their way, so they go in the grass, or they try to go down a hill to get somewhere quicker. And that, when you get older, you can't offset your balance and everything.
And in a community which is so enriched by our trees, we have sidewalks that
Right.
are
Uneven.
Right.
uneven.
Quite uneven.
Also in frost heaving in the wintertime, that sometimes there are unevennesses there that weren't there a month ago.
Right. And also during the winter weather, the winter season, when you have ice on the ground. And you try to, you know, I tell my patients in the office, you know, if you can, try to avoid certain things. You know, they're going to go out shoveling, but if they're not that steady on their feet, be careful, you know, and stuff like that.
What kinds of things can we do, or what kinds of things do you do in your practices to encourage people to use the stabilizing devices, also called canes, which canes and walkers, what I find is that people are often really reluctant to use them because it's so symbolic of a loss of functioning. And so, you know, I want to talk about how we regain the functioning or maintain the functioning, but also I just worry about the people who have been told to use one or it's been recommended, but they don't. And at each step, from the fashionable cane to the quad cane to the walker, each of those is a significant step in their self-perception.
The way I bring the issue up in patients who come to visit the office is basically, in the home, you should be using the walker because in the home you're alone, if they are. When you go out, if you're going out with your family, you should use the cane or make sure that you have somebody that will offer you the arm, and that is your cane. And so they get used to use an assistive device. We in rehab call it assistive device. And they get used to use it, but they must use it properly as well. If they have an assistive device and they use it the wrong way, they actually
It's of no
increase their
good.
risk of their fall. So it's very important for them to have proper instruction, but more important to understand the reason they need it. So I try to explain to them in simple terms and hopefully quite convincing that they must use it to prevent a fall that will bring them then into a walker instead of a cane and several weeks of rehabilitation. Now, in many instances, when patients are at the Princeton Care Center, we stress the need of maintaining the use of the assistive device because they themselves have found that it's easier to walk. It's less energy consuming,
It's
and
better
they can
balance.
maintain their balance a lot better because they're not
balance.
as fatigued when they're walking. So if they were recommended to use a walker or a cane, it is extremely important, and it's in their best interest to do so, especially in the wintertime. I always add the spring and summer as well because the rain, and the rain with their shoes, it can become quite slippery. So it's all through the year. It's prevention more than trying to fix something later.
Okay. So Harsha, let's talk about that. What kinds of things you do as a part of rehabilitation? Because one of the things that I've also found, and Bob, you may have also, is people are ready for discharge from the hospital and they go, I want to go home.
Right.
I want to go home. I don't want to go to rehab. I want to go home. I want to be in my own bed. So let's talk a little bit about what rehab offers
At
and how you help people.
Okay. At
why?
Princeton Care Center, we try to provide highest quality of rehab. We have skilled occupational, physical, and speech therapist who works like 6 days a week and under the guidance of Dr. Platzman and Dr. Gilmarty. Gilmarty. And what we do basically, let's say if a patient comes to Princeton Care Center, we perform a detailed evaluation. We assess how the fall occurred. We'll look into the history of the fall, how, when, and where that fall occurred. Then while we are performing the evaluation, we also look into standardized testing, which are like Berg testing, Tinity balance testing, which gives us an idea like what high risk level the patient is, whether moderate, medium, or high risk level. And depending upon that, the evaluation outcome, the therapist will establish and customize the goals for the residents, like to return to prior level of function.
Which means getting them back home.
Correct. Prior level of function, returning home.
That's the first goal, always.
And the resident's goal is our goal at Princeton Care, and we make sure that we try to attend, but also we have to be realistic depending upon the type of the injury and how far they need the rehab. We'll try to work with them.
I think, you know, patients in the hospitals always have that underlying fear that once they go into a rehab center, they're not going to be home, they're not going to be independent, which, you know, as a physician in a rehab or a physician outside, my goal is to keep them out in the community as long as possible. And they might need an assist device. And that assist device is not saying you're getting older, it's to make sure that you're safe, to make sure whether you need someone out there, other measures, but our goal is to get you stronger, to make sure you're as close to baseline. Now, you might not get to the baseline at the rehab center, but you might be able to get to a certain point where you can continue the therapy outside.
At home.
You know, where someone, or what the, you know, the time at the rehab center, what it does, it buys you time to make sure the environment outside will be safe, or you have to change your environment, whether you have to go with family, whether you need to change your environment in the sense of, you know, being on one level as opposed to two.
And
Trying to avoid that.
gives the family time. Hopefully you can
Exactly.
engage the family.
Right.
You know, you can't just snap your fingers
Right.
and have a bedroom built downstairs.
Right,
So
it's
it-
really
it
multifactorial
takes
in the
time,
sense
but
that
it might just be things like putting those grab
Right.
bars in and,
Exactly.
and
And
making it safe.
Well, it is certainly much more than that, because our, as we say, the patient's goal is our goal. And yes, they do want to go home, but they must get stronger. They must get better balance as they grow stronger, and that takes time. Once an elderly person lays down in the hospital in a bed for a week or two, more than 50% of their strength is lost. And it takes a week or two to lose it, but it takes 4 to 6 weeks to regain it.
That's
And
really
that
important,
is
'cause people sort
something
of expect that
People
rebound.
expect to rebound as soon as they get out of the hospital, which is not the case. Even in younger people, in their 40s and early 50s, you can see how weakened the person is after a week at the hospital. Now, when they come into the Princeton Care Center and they begin their strengthening exercises, their medications have been adjusted at the hospital, their nutrition improves, their wounds, if there are any, are healing, they feel the amount of energy returning. And that is really important. They themselves see that they're turning the corner. And that fear of, I'm here, this is what I'm going to be, it gets better. And so they begin the real healing. They usually leave the rehab units before they're independent. That does not mean that they are going to remain at that level. There are services for the home. We arrange for services as outpatient, and we assist the families. But the importance of our work is the patient. The family is important, but the most important is the patient.
Well, one of the things that I have seen in my caregiver support groups is that one spouse has something happen, ends up in the hospital, and then needs to go into rehab. And of course they want to come home, but the caregiving spouse doesn't have the strength
That's
you know,
correct.
And so, you know, she may not be able to get him from the chair to bed or to the toilet or something. And so he really needs to work on building up that strength again so they don't both go down.
So basically, when they come to Princeton Care Center and when we are treating in rehab, what we work increasing their range of motion, increasing their muscle strength. We work on balance strategies, different like high-level balance activities, going up and down the stairs. We also work like ADL activities. We also look into training them into kitchen. Like when they go home and if they are the primary caregivers and if they need to prepare the meals, we will train them how to work around their injuries and disabilities so that they are able to function normally.
Well, I know that some people, you know, when we're focusing on fall prevention, that people might be in the hospital or in rehab for something else. And as you say, you know, you might be in the hospital for a week with the flu, and just the fact that you're laying in bed for a week can then create a fall risk, which didn't exist before. And so you need to work on those things. Let's
Decreasing the fear of falling, like a lot of education, a lot of family training, a lot of patient care education to prevent further falls.
Let's just wrap up with a couple of ideas of things that people can do at home. You know, we have
Before they fall.
home watchers, right? What are the kinds of things that our watchers can do at home to maintain balance or check balance or
I think,
Maintain activity.
I think exercise.
Maintain the
Exercise.
exercise. If you are in good health and you are in your 70s or 80s, go for a walk every day. If you cannot go for a walk for an hour, go for 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the afternoon. Do some exercises in the home. Try to attend exercise groups.
come into the Senior Resource Center.
Senior
and take
resource,
classes.
exactly, because the stronger they are to begin with, the faster they recover, the less falls they will have, and the more they will be a lot better off if they do get ill.
I think as a physician, one thing also is make sure preventative care. You know, if you're a diabetic, you want to make sure you have good foot care because of neuropathy. If certain medications you're on, polypharmacy, you want to make sure that you're not on too many mind-altering drugs because those things can, you know, play a role in falls. So just following up with your physician also can help prevent falls.
Okay. Do you have a last thought?
The way Dr. Guillemardis said, exercise, walking, and even dancing is also an
It's a
alternative.
great exercise.
I was also going
It's
to
a
say
great
yoga. Our
yoga,
yoga class,
dancing,
yoga and Tai Chi classes.
Tai Chi
A lot of
classes,
the people
absolutely.
are taking them for balance, and
Yeah,
the teachers
which
are both.
improves your balance and
They're
coordination.
senior-focused classes, but
Sure.
they really focus a lot on balance,
Balance.
and knowing
Yeah.
where your balance point
Right.
is and
Yep.
and how to catch yourself.
Yep.
So
They must be.
thank you all so
Thank you.
much for
Thank you.
coming
You're
in.
welcome.
We want everyone to stay healthy and
And
be
strong.
able to, and strong. And so thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.